All right. Every team in the NBA has gone through about 41 games so far, if not a few more. That's the midseason point of the NBA season right there. And we just wanted to get some of our thoughts down on the recorded format so we can make sure that everyone can hear how smart we are or how dumb we are. Kyle, introduce yourself.
My name's Kyle Smith. What up?
Sam Stowers, nice to see you.
All right, so as we said, it's about
Josh Millay. Sorry, he's an asshole.
That's not. I'm just kidding.
Love it.
Anywho, so we just want to talk about some of the surprises and disappointments of this NBA season before we get into some of the meatier topics that we'd like to talk about. Kyle, would you like to start us off with one of your biggest surprises or one of your biggest disappointments?
Well, I would like to say that my first and most surprising thing would obviously be the turnaround in Portland. We all knew what they could do possibly with the bench, but I didn't expect them to have one of the best records in the NBA right now. I think you've seen a huge step from Marcus Aldridge. You've seen the continued progression of an undrafted free agent as well as one of the top picks in the draft, Damian Lillard and Wes Matthews, respectively. I think it's been an exciting run for all three players. Batum's finally starting to earn some of that money he got when he didn't sign with the T-Wolves. What about you guys? What do you guys think?
With Trailblazers, yeah, honestly, you said it. Like, they are playing team basketball. Like, they're just one of those teams where everything just goes and connects. And also, the thing I think that's most exciting is the fact that Aldridge has to do a lot less than he's had to in the past. So when they get into the playoffs, not only are they going to have a lot of matchup problems for other teams, but Aldridge isn't going to be dead.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to point out is that stats don't tell Sam's point because Aldridge is leading the league in field goal attempts per game, but a lot of those are just wide open 18, 19 footers. And he's not having to struggle in the post against Duncans or Chris Bosh's or good post defenders. So while he's doing more in the stats, it looks like, he's actually been more efficient and taking less of a toll on his body. So it's something you really take into account when you watch the games and really look at how each player is progressing throughout their careers, especially during the season. And Sam, one of your biggest surprises outside of Portland?
Honestly, everyone's been talking about it, but if you're not surprised by Lance Stevenson, you're either a psychic or you're not paying attention. Right now, there are 11 players in the NBA, actually maybe 12 after yesterday. About 12 players in the NBA with a triple-double. Lance Stevenson has 3. This dude is getting 13.9 points a game, 6.8 rebounds, 5.2 assists, and now he's setting up a new dynamic to the Indiana Pacers. Before we're just be these hardworking players, now you've got this wild card. Someone who actually makes it an even tougher matchup for the Heat.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been on Lance's bandwagon, especially since the beginning of last year. Obviously, in the playoffs, he really stepped up his game, but his name, he was a big-time high school recruit, went to Cincinnati, kind of faltered a bit, had some problems adapting to the college game, adapting to not being just, no matter what, the best player on the floor. He came to Indiana, second-round pick, humbled a bit. Larry Bird kind of took him under his wing and made sure that he knows what he's great at and what he needs help at. And like Sam says, he runs a lot of the offense in the half-court set, feeding the post with Hibbert and West. He's a very good passer. He gives 110% every time he plays. He's always running out loose balls, guarding one of the best two-wing defenders, switching with Paul George, whoever. They can just switch on screens. A lot of teams cannot do that on defense. Portland can with Batum and Wes Matthews. Golden State likes to try with Iggy and Klay Thompson. They're actually getting better at that, but it's something they need to work on. But Lance and the Pacers have really been an incredible surprise. And one thing I'd like to talk about, I'll be the negative one of the group. That's kind of what I do. I'd like to talk about the disappointment in Houston. Houston's actually has a very good record. They are the 4th seed in the Western Conference, I believe, or the 5th seed. They're right there with the Clippers and the Golden State. They're kind of all fighting it out for the 4, 5, 6 with Portland, OKC, and San Antonio kind of being the top 3 dogs. And I'm very underwhelmed by their defensive improvement. Adding Dwight Howard, whereas he may not be as dominant as he was in Orlando, should still account for defensive improvement. And there hasn't been that much difference because I feel like James Harden is still trying to take so much of an offensive load by himself that he's not focusing on defense like he did in Oklahoma City when he came off the bench, where he'd routinely come off the bench, be that second unit spark, and then in their crunch time 5 lineup in the fourth quarter, he would usually guard the best wing player, whether it be the 2 or the 3, so Durant could save his energy for offense. And I feel like his intensity on that side of the ball has not followed through. Dwight is not the same. Parsons is a developing player. He's a great shooter and rebounder for his size. Terrence Jones is a decent stretch four. Beverly is a tenacious defender who can't really do much else yet. Jeremy Lin's a good guard off the bench, but they have no shot at winning a title until their defensive intensity matches their offensive mind. So, anyone else want to have any disappointing surprises you'd really like to knock out before we get into this?
I'd like to just go a little bit deeper into what you're saying, maybe just add a couple extra points. You're talking about a team that's paying Omer Sheik $8 million this year to practically sit on the bench and let Dwight Howard do almost the exact same thing.
It jumps
Now,
to 15 next year, and that's why they can't trade him.
Yeah,
One reason.
Right. It's been an incredibly mind-blowing aspect of the NBA for a very long time. It's something we'll discuss later about what's wrong with the NBA per signing free agents over developing your own talent. Because when you bring a player like a Sheik in from the Bulls on a contract like that, you're expecting him to play, and while you may pass him up for a superstar, you might be surprised with the sabermetrics show you. So, going on to our next point.
Sam, any other surprises, disappointments you'd like to mention before we go to the next topic?
Quick little combo. I mean, obviously, biggest disappointment, the whole Eastern Conference. It's like the fourth place team in the Eastern Conference is, I want to say, 1 or 2 games over 500. But that being said, that fourth team in the Eastern Conference, Toronto Raptors, where did this come from? Although I would admit a lot of it comes from the fact that the biggest thing they've done that's positive is avoid a meltdown. We're still looking at a team that is 4th in the league in points allowed with 96.9. And they're kind of just a grab bag of these great not great players, but great position players.
A lot of outcasts.
Yeah, outcasts that work together. Like, real quick, look through the lineup. You have your DeMar DeRozan, but you have your Landry Fields, Tyler Hansbrough, Chuck Hayes, Amir Johnson, who he's a huge fan of.
Amir Johnson does everything you need a power forward to do that's not a first option, and he has a great name.
He's your mule, basically. He's your mule. Kyle Lowry, Steve Novak, Patrick Patterson, Terrence Ross, who had one of the most random 51-point games where he's, 10 of 17 from 3-point line?
Tony Delk is proud.
Yeah. So, honestly, they're just one of those teams that makes the Eastern Conference somewhat enjoyable to watch just because who saw this coming?
Yeah, Kyle Lowry's playing at all-star level, and he's a free agent to be, and it's interesting to see if they're going to try to dump him for some reason to get that lottery pick they want so bad, or if they're going to extend him, sign and trade him, if he's just going to leave without any, repayment on that value he has. It's an interesting thing to look at. Anything to add to Toronto, Kyle?
Oh, I just think it's funny how bad Detroit's been.
Detroit's
If you had made a bet with me at the very beginning of the year, I would have taken 10-1 odds that Detroit was going to be better than the Charlotte Bobcats. But
what is Detroit's record right now?
they're only 2 games off Charlotte, but still, I mean,
They're 17 and 27.
for what their
My
payroll
God.
is, it's absolutely ridiculous by comparison.
Do you remember seeing the Eastern Conference this bad, guys?
No. Maybe the
If I have, I expunged it from my memory already.
99, 2000 after Jordan left because the entire NBA was down.
Yeah.
That'd be the best example.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next topic, we would just want to really touch on the teams that actually have a shot to beat Miami. We know the Bulls are making the playoffs because Thibodeau hates everything about that team right now because they traded Dane and Rose can't play, but they have no shot to win. There's about 7 teams that have a really good shot at winning the NBA title. We'd just like to touch on them really quick. Miami. Thoughts on Miami, everyone?
Better than last year, as long as Wade's healthy in the playoffs. I love the Greg Oden pickup. I think that they're just, every year they get better and better chemistry-wise. The only question that lingers each and every year is how much is LeBron going to take over in the finals. He's going to wait till the very last game. Can you really count on Ray Allen making that three-pointer every single time? Those would be the questions you look for in the playoffs.
Actually, I disagree a little bit. I feel right now Miami's just at a point where they're kind of just an autopilot. How good they actually are, I think we're still yet to see. I think they're going through the usual thing that they do where it's like, okay, well, we're really going to focus in when it gets to the playoff time and stuff like that. But eventually with the team, you try and it's not there.
Yeah, I would say that I'm worried about Miami as much as you could be worried about a two-time defending champion.
Yeah.
Dwayne Wade, if he's healthy, great player still, fringe top 10 in the league. He's missing more games than last year. Hopefully that means they're just resting him as much as possible. Ray Allen is getting some extra rest. Hopefully, yeah. I'm worried about their supporting cast a bit. Battier's missed a lot of time. I'm worried they've had some defensive lapses and gaps from the previous years, but maybe that's just mid-year, like they're saying. They're just going on autopilot and they'll turn up the defensive intensity. Bosch has been incredible. Outside LeBron, he's clearly been one of the most consistent players in the league. Like you know what you're getting from Bosch. You're getting about 20 and 10. Great defense, especially on the pick and roll. Might be the best pick and roll defender this side of Noah. And Noah's foot problems have really sapped that from him. So Miami is the defending champs, and they should be the favorite. But I'm one of the few people that don't think they're the favorite because I think the Indiana Pacers are the favorite for the NBA title right now. They almost beat Miami last year. They won games in Miami. They've improved their bench by adding C.J. Watson, Luis Scola. George has gotten better. Lance Stephenson's gotten better. Roy Hibbert has pretty much been Roy Hibbert, one of the best defensive players in the league, if not better. David West has been the consummate veteran leader who can get you 20 if you need it, or get you 8 and 15 if you need that. Their coach Frank Vogel, one of the best in the league. They have the fans to give them somewhat of a home court advantage, something Miami doesn't have for sure. And they're the best challenger to Miami. Those two are destined to meet in the Eastern Conference Finals, and I think they're going to beat them in 6 games because they have home court advantage. Thoughts on that, Kyle?
Before I go into the Indiana Pacers, I'd like to just mention Michael Beasley really quick. Just because he is kind of that small forward type that you never know. He can come off the bench. He can play shooting guard. He can play a little bit of power forward depending on who's on the court. He can play as a small forward. He can shoot efficiently. He's shown that throughout his career that he can shoot 48%. I'd also like to mention the additions of Luis Scola to the Indiana Pacers. I think that they've been really better for him by coming off the bench. Kind of an underrated player, a little overpaid at this point, but it's all good. You do what you do at that point.
Sam, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, basically I agree. If we went and did the finals right now, I would put money on the Pacers right now, hands down. They're one of those teams, like he said, the bench has gotten stronger, but if you look at the starting lineup, if you go position by position, they match up really well, if not in some positions, overshadow the Miami Heat. Although, one thing I do want to go back a little bit, another thing about Bosch, by far the most prolific photo bomber in sports history.
Yeah, that whole team is great at those video bombs, photo bombs, and it's a nice little wrinkle to keep them loose, I think, during games, especially after wins. So that way you're not totally dead-eye focused on basketball. That's something very different from like the Jordan teams of the three-peats. Jordan was just so focused on basketball winning, whereas this team, like everyone wants to win, but they try to have fun with it more, and I feel like that keeps the team loose, especially during a three-peat grind.
That and with a player like Bosch, if you notice, first of all, winning 2 championships doesn't hurt when it comes to lightening up. But as it's gotten more and more off of his intensity and how he's been in the past, the better he's performed. Also, it's just, I don't know, I feel like Bosch, each year he finds his place in this whole trio a whole lot better.
He's a very underrated intimidator.
Yeah.
If you really look at it,
Very much so.
I mean, they don't talk about him in like a Kevin Garnett, like mean type role because he's not that type of player on the court. But when that guy is in the game, it's Alien versus Predator out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's balling out. Like he's gonna bring it.
Yeah, he will get more money than Wade in this offseason if all 3 of them opt out. And if they all 3 stay in Miami. Because I feel like Wade is going to take a little bit of pay cut due to the injuries. And he'll still get paid, but that's something to mention. So.
C.J. Watson.
Yeah,
Nice. Did you bring him
I
up?
brought up C.J. Watson.
Okay, yeah, I like that. That's a nice little pickup.
Yeah, he's a little bit of the heat check
Better than
guy.
Augustine.
Yeah, although he's having a great year in Chicago
No, he
with
is.
Thibodeau.
But he kind of
brings something different to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next team that we feel like has a shot to beat Miami is Spurs. They almost did it last year. If Ray Allen doesn't hit that 3, they probably win the game. If Duncan is in the game to get the rebound, they probably win the game in the series, but that's a whole different conversation. In the offseason, the San Antonio Spurs pretty much brought back the entire team, re-signed Splitter, re-signed Manu, but they added Marco Bellinelli and kind of just kept the same core unit they had. And this year has been pretty much game as usual. The Spurs are right there at the top of the conference. Everyone's doing their thing. Parker's missed a few games. Duncan's rested a bit. Manu's rested a bit. But they've done their thing. Manu Ginobili has actually played a lot better than last year. He hasn't been really cold. He hasn't missed as many games. He hasn't turned over the ball as much. His shot's going in. Marco Bellinelli's shooting very well right now. He's filling in that Manu Ginobili role if he's not on the floor for various reasons, and he can spot start. Danny Green's been hurt, but he still showed the ability to be a really good defender, although his shooting obviously cooled down a bit this year. Leonard is a great defender, one of the best in the league, can guard 3s or 4s or 2s sometimes. His offense hasn't developed as I'd like in terms of a number one option, but some of that may have to do with them, how they run their system through Parker with pick and rolls and Duncan, and it's pretty much the Spurs. It's business as usual. Popovich is there, and as long as they got Popovich, Duncan, Parker, they're going to be in the mix. So, Kyle?
I like what I'm seeing out of Patty Mills. Always been a fan, so that's always nice. They've got some unique contributions from Tyrus Jeffers the last couple games. They've got guys like Jeff Ayers, formerly Pendergraft, coming in. So just some interesting guys. Just testament to Popovich.
But still, it's the Spurs. Like he said, as long as they have Popovich, Parker, Duncan, Ginobili, they're good. But as long as once I see what that roster is going to be, once the playoffs are starting, then it's a different story. But it's always fingers crossed with this team.
Yeah, health is the biggest issue with this team. If they lose Duncan, they're done. If they lose Parker, they're pretty much done. They can survive Ginobili because of Bellinelli now, but those two, and probably Leonard now as well because of his defensive value and rebounding. The health is a big issue for them, like it is any team, but because they're on the other side of 30 for the most part, it's even more of a concern for them. So.
Here's an interesting question. We hadn't talked about this earlier. Would you rather lose Parker and Leonard, or would you rather lose Leonard and Ginobili?
Leonard and Ginobili.
For sure.
Because Bellinelli can replace
Who's going to
Ginobili.
play defense?
Danny Green, but you lose Leonard in both situations. So,
yeah.
I mean,
You're not gonna
I'd rather keep Parker than Ginobili because you're losing Leonard
I
in
may
both.
have said that wrong.
Do you
say
mean
Duncan?
Ginobili and Parker, or Leonard and Ginobili? That's what I meant.
I want Leonard, so I'd rather
That's
lose
what I
Parker and
meant.
Ginobili.
That's a much more interesting. Yeah, sorry, I spoke that wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Leonard
I'd
has.
rather have the combination Parker and Ginobili over Ginobili and Leonard.
I think it's getting to the point where Leonard has ingrained himself enough in this team where he's a must on that roster.
He's
You take him and Ginobili.
Yeah, he's the second most important player on that team on defense, and the most important player in terms of one-on-one defense because of how the league has switched to wing defense.
Yeah.
Duncan
I
still
would
guards
agree
the
with
rim. Last year was one of his best years ever, but
Ginobili can run the point if he has
exactly, it's,
Well, I mean,
it's
that, and like
They've
you
got
said,
enough
Patty
shooters to
Mills-
back it up. Yeah.
yeah. So
Anyways,
the third team we want to touch on is, in my opinion, the best team out west, especially when healthy, Oklahoma City. Obviously, Kevin Durant is having an incredible season. His shooting numbers off the charts again. He's rebounding more, turning the ball over less, stepping it up a little bit on defense. He's having a lot more assists, but some of that may have to do with Westbrook being out. And that's the issue in terms of winning a title. Is when Westbrook comes back, is he still going to be Westbrook? I like to think yes because he's a physical specimen. But if not, it's going to be really hard to beat a team like Miami in the finals if they can even get there without Westbrook. Serge Ibaka's had a great year, his best year ever. Reggie Jackson's developed a lot in Westbrook's absence, giving them a really good guard off the bench when Westbrook comes back. Kendrick Perkins is pretty much a black hole, but as Scott Brooks has said, very important to team chemistry. He understands team chemistry. Jeremy Lamb has actually played well a little bit. Steven Adams has been frisky. And it's just really interesting to see what Oklahoma City is going to be able to do with Durant playing at this high of a level and when Westbrook comes back. Sam, would you like to go next?
Oh, no, I'm just enjoying playing the dog. I'm having a great
The
time.
dog's having a great time.
I
being
know,
out of
right?
all
he
this.
enjoys the
Yeah.
conversation.
Basically, the biggest difference I'm seeing with OKC here is this is a different Durant. We have not seen this Durant before. This Durant, I believe he's got more technicals this year than he's ever had. So what's that tell you? It's telling you he's playing mad. In the past, whether it's the great series he's had with the Lakers, whether it's the great series you've seen him play with the Heat, he's always been the bridesmaid. Now he's in the position where it's my show. And like you said, overall, it's a pretty good team backing it up. And when you get into the playoffs, you've got those players like Collison who's going to do all that dirty work that needs to be getting done.
Yeah, Collison, I forgot to mention him. He's always been a plus-minus monster.
Oh,
Works really hard. Kyle, OKC thoughts?
I love Collison as well. Dude knows how to take a charge. I feel like you guys did a pretty good job covering it, though.
All right, next team, Kyle touched on this, is one of the surprises. Portland Trailblazers. Right now, they have the league's best offense by points per possession. Damian Lillard has definitely improved a little bit on offense, becoming a better shooter. I believe he leads the league in three-point attempts and makes right now. Wes Matthews is having one of his best years staying healthy. Nicholas Batum has stayed healthy and has really started to develop into that point forward defensive monster that he was supposed to be when he got drafted. But Marcus Aldridge is the MVP candidate. We'll touch on the MVP list in a few. And Robin Lopez, who they pretty much got as a cast-off, has been the key cog to this team. He's really solidified their defense, protected the rim, really helped them on pick and rolls, defending that, and has really allowed them to take some of their more intriguing young players like Myers Leonard, Thomas Robinson, who they got for free off the scrap heap, CJ McCollum. He's allowed them to solidify the starting lineup and let them develop coming off the bench. And Mo Williams is having a Mo Williams year after having a couple down years, is being a really good heat check guy.
Yep.
Allows them to rest Damian Lillard a bit and has really provided value for that small contract. Kyle, Portland?
I was just you brought exactly who I was gonna bring up, Mo Williams. I mean, every good team needs that guy that comes off the bench and scores, that can give everyone a breather, especially when you've got 5 guys that are in the top 10 minutes played this year so far. You've got Wes Matthews and Lillard, top 3 respectively in 3-point attempts, not just Lillard, which I think is just incredible because now you've got guys like Lopez and Aldridge who you've seen huge rebound increases, and a lot of them are coming on the offensive side. So it really just goes to show they're kind of, I wouldn't call it the money ball strategy, but kind of the NBA, which is take more 3-pointers, reduce the amount of short field goals, bank on high crashing the glass instead of using transition and trying to get that to increase your points. And that's kind of what they've shown. They've obviously created a good balance, and I give their head coach credit for that. But very interesting team. I feel like they're doing what Houston was supposed to do 100 times better.
Pretty much. Way I see it is they're almost they have their differences, of course. Almost a West Coast version of the Pacers, where they're gonna hurt you at every position.
Yep.
They got the bench to get it done, also. And once again, let's make it 3 on Mo Williams. Playoffs, Mo Williams is gonna make a difference.
Yeah, he will. He's not afraid to take those shots to win the game, and sometimes that's a bad thing. But you want guys like that.
It can be a bad thing.
You need guys like that, especially off the bench, that are willing, if someone gets hurt, foul trouble, someone who's not afraid of the moment. And Mo Williams is not afraid of the moment. So props to you, Mo Williams. If you watch this, I like you.
Casual thug.
The next team we want to touch on, speaking of 3-point attempts and 3-point makes, the Golden State Warriors. Frisco in the house. Now, everyone knows about Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, their shooting. If they get hot, they can almost win the game by themselves. But some few things people may not have noticed. Andrew Bogut has become this, weird Australian enforcer that's like MacGyver in terms of avoiding the refs. Like, he knows exactly what to do to irritate Zach Randolph and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan to where they may get technicals or get the refs' attention, but he's the innocent white guy, and he's really instigating everything, kind of like the banking leaders in the world. David Lee's doing his consistent power forward thing. He's going to get you 18, 19 points, 9, 10 rebounds, play bad defense, and it's not going to hurt you too much because you got Bogut there to instigate everything. Andre Iguodala, they picked him up in the offseason. They traded a lot of assets and cap space, expiring contracts to Utah to have the money to sign him. And he's really provided that wing defender, that secondary ball handler to Curry, that defensive veteran leader with Bogut who can kind of help lock down players when the playoffs come. And that's really going to be key for Mark Jackson's system. And I'm going to end with that note because I know that Sam wants to talk about a player that I'm a big fan of, and so does Kyle.
Go for it, guys.
Oh, go ahead. This is all you, man.
Oh, this is all me?
Well, pretty much, yeah.
Okay, cool. We're still doing Warriors? Sure. All right. Basically, the Warriors with this, like you were saying, Bogut, he's a total enforcer. David Lee counteracts that. And their bench is not bad. You've got Harrison Barnes is starting to develop into a pretty decent player. And then, of course, you have his very, very favorite player, Klay Thompson. No, Klay Thompson, he's always been a guy that you've always seen him as a 3-point shooter, things like that. But honestly, he's really starting to spread his game out. If you look at his shot distribution, it's spread out more throughout the floor. Also, when you're talking playoffs, getting into it, stuff like that, this home court is gnarly. You do not want to play in Oakland.
Yeah.
Ask the Dallas fan about the 2007 playoffs.
I don't want to be talked to about any playoffs, any near future or anything. Anyways, Draymond Green, another Golden State player.
Wasn't
I'm a
like-
huge fan of, dude.
Draymond,
I mean, that guy can hit a three. He can guard
multiple
positions. He's kind of got that dumb look on his face. So as an offensive player, like you think you have him, and you just don't. That's just the way his face looks. Like it's a very unfair competitive advantage for Draymond Green. If you're listening to this, I'm still a really big fan. Just don't find me or punch me or anything like that.
It's kind of like the Morris twins if they switch jerseys like they did in the AAU because their games are so different. It's kind of like the Draymond Green face. So you've got two teams left, both in the West, of course, because the East is horrible. The next team we want to talk about is the LA Clippers. Now, the good things the Clippers have going for them, Blake Griffin is having probably his best year ever. His defense has improved under Doc's tutelage. His rebounding numbers are up. His offensive game has developed nicely, as we've seen the last couple years with his playmaking ability and outside shot. DeAndre Jordan is leading the league in rebounds per game, and he is right up there in blocks per game and leading the league in field goal percentage. Now, obviously, he still can't hit a free throw, so that's an issue, but he's really playing up to that contract. He's a great compliment to Blake Griffin in terms of what they do offense and defense. J.J. Redick has been a great pickup. He missed a few games, but he's a dead-eye shooter, a decent ball handler, and he tries his best on defense. And Chris Paul, best point guard in the league, not afraid of the moment, more than willing to take the last shot, can control the game better than anyone in the league. And those are the great things going on for the Clippers. They got a coach that's been there, won the title, and I feel like that they're just missing a couple of components to be right up there on that top tier with Indiana and Oklahoma City to challenge Miami. And they really need a lockdown defender on the wing. It could be Matt Barnes, but I feel like he might have lost a step, but playoffs might bring him back. Jared Dudley, I've been underwhelmed by this year, even though I really like him. And if those two step up, they might have the solution, but with the trade deadline in about 3-4 weeks, they may need to have to go outside of their team to find the solution to that problem. Kyle Smith?
I would actually agree with that a lot because they have 4 small forwards on their team. I'll tell you who they are. They've got Steven Jackson, Hedo Turkoglu, Jared Dudley, and Matt Barnes. You can only play like maybe 1 or 2 of these guys, and that's like limited minutes. So maybe those are one of the guys they try and move. I don't know which one you really pick, but I mean, obviously if there's a guy out there you feel like you can have an expiring deal, you're willing to take on the luxury tax, maybe somebody would want Jared Dudley's contract or something like that. I really don't know. But kind of an interesting team looking at it just from all sides. I've always been a fan of Ryan Holland's game. I think he takes the charge well. I think he's kind of in that Nick Collins breed. Kind of gets doesn't get as much credit because he's still a younger player, but kind of an intriguing option spelling DeAndre in the fourth because, I mean, if you are going to have that free throw percentage problem, you're going to need a guy who can play those minutes, and Holland's been that guy so far. So as long as he can continue to shoot an upward of 65% from the free throw line, he should keep his spot, and he plays pretty good defense.
Yeah, honestly, the biggest problem with the Clippers, if you're talking about a Clippers versus Miami matchup, is getting there. When you talk about things like that's the biggest issue. When you look at the actual matchup between a team like Miami and the team like Clippers, rebounds and the front court, I would have to give it to the Clippers. You have DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin. I think they would really go and bang the boards. Your key here would be DeAndre Jordan. And as per getting in positions where it's the clutch shots, let's look at this. You got Chris Paul. Yeah, he can do it.
Yeah.
You go and got Dudley. He could pull it if you find him in the corner. Same with Redick. Same with Crawford. That and also Blake Griffin is going to be the guy who goes and would have to step up. I mean, would you put Blake Griffin on LeBron James? Is that what you would have to do, just size-wise? Or would you have to look more as a
They don't have anyone besides him. It would be Blake, and it would be Jared Dudley because Matt Barnes is way too small. And J.J. Redick, you would never even think about that.
No,
so it'd have to be a Blake-Dudley combo, which is why I'm worried about them defensively because, like you said, to get there, who are they putting on Durant?
Not happening.
Exactly. So that's kind of the thing because unlike, LeBron where, you'd be like, he still isn't a great jump shooter, which is totally wrong. You could be like, I'll just force you in the middle to deal with DeAndre or something. You can't do that Durant because he can just shoot all day over anyone. So who are you going to have to kind of man up with him? That's why the Spurs against OKC is a little bit more interesting just because they have Leonard, who isn't the player Durant is, but size-wise defensively, he provides a lot more interesting matchup. So So that's a good thing to look at. So any thoughts about a Miami Clipper thing if they were to get there? Just like the LeBron issue, Blake issue for each team?
Well, I think it'd be interesting to see how you'd match up against them because, well, one thing everybody has to realize is Doc Rivers does not run a man scheme. Never has. That's not really his thing. He runs zone. So you're going to have LeBron matched up against a variety of defenders, and that's kind of how he's done it in the past. He's going to try and get you to move a certain way to get into the paint because LeBron James' best game when he's shooting at the highest percentage is right in that very circle right underneath the hoop.
The painted area.
The painted area. He's going to be able to do that. You're going to try and keep him off the elbows of the court, try and keep him away from the three-point line because he's shown that he can hit those. So that'll be an interesting defense matchup because Dudley can get out there, Barnes can get out there, anybody can get out there and put a hand up when they're doing the catch and shoot. It's just, can you stop that? Can you have the leverage to, when they make that drive, can you push him into the proper defender? And I don't know if the Clippers have really shown that they have the ability to do that. We'll see. They're improving every game, sort of. So we'll really see how that pans out. But the zone thing doesn't scare me too much as far as the Miami Heat's concerned.
And Kyle brings up another point, another matchup I'm not even thinking about. If you want to talk about a coach who has experience with this Miami Heat team, how to play with it, and honestly, I think he has better pieces to deal with this team with the Clippers than he had in Boston. Yeah, Doc Rivers is going to be on my short list.
Because Pierce covered LeBron a lot
Yeah.
at the top of the key.
And it really set his offensive
He's
game.
very similar to Dudley, though. Defensively.
Size,
No,
I don't know about
I
that.
give that
Dudley's
to
6'7".
Pierce.
Yeah, size-wise they're similar, yes, but in terms of smarts, effort, just overall defensive talent, I don't feel like they're that similar. And plus, LeBron had to factor in Pierce on the offensive end in terms of being a go-to guy someone who could, at least in the first year of Miami, could hang with them.
Right.
But in the later years, Pierce obviously wasn't on LeBron's level. But in terms of making LeBron work, but nowadays, Dudley is size-wise they're similar, but they're not that much similar.
Just age-wise, he's 28. Pierce was like 33, 32 trying to guard him.
Right.
It could have, in his own scheme, it's not unfathomable to think that he could get that hand out there.
Yeah.
And make the leverage to be like, yo, you're going this way.
Right. So the last
Bronze.
team we'd like to talk about really quick, and I don't buy this team. We're all kind of iffy on this team, but they have a better record than the Golden State Warriors, so we figured we would bring them up just because record-wise and their pedigree and talent. The Houston Rockets. Some of their strengths, they have a legit option who can score with LeBron. James Harden has shown the ability to be a number one option. He's shown the ability that he can hang with anyone and that he can lead a team in the fourth quarter. Chandler Parsons has really developed. He had 10 threes in the second half, matching an NBA record for most threes in half the other game. Terrence Jones has developed nicely as a potential stretch four complement to Dwight Howard, and Dwight Howard, he is one of the best centers in the league. He may not be to his Orlando Peak level, but Chris Bosh can't guard Dwight Howard. Not many players can. I put maybe Hibbert on him, and then maybe Marcus Gasol. But Bosh is just a little too small. He's smart enough to do it from time to time, but the issue is Dwight Howard is not assertive enough to really take advantage of his size and jumping ability. So it kind of negates it. So that's the issue with Houston is they don't guard anyone. I feel like a lot of that has to do with the player. I've been a little bit disappointed in this year in James Harden, just from the standpoint that his defensive intensity does not match his offensive game and his talent. And I feel like that kind of drags the team's potential down from a title contender to that second-tier really good team that can beat you on any night. But in a 7-game series with no back-to-backs, it's going to be really hard for them to beat an OKC, a Miami, and Indiana because they don't have that defensive identity to really lock you down and get a stop when they need it.
Yeah, like they say, playoffs is a lie detector, and with the regular season, if you look at it, the Rockets, they have a great record, but it seems, like I've been saying, it's superficial. Look at who they have the wins against. Charlotte, Jazz. They're going against teams, they've lost to Philadelphia. New York Knicks, Denver, Brooklyn before they got on this big run. They haven't been against that many impressive teams, although I will say they have won a game against Golden State. They have won a game against Portland, but when you get in that 7-game series, those flaws are just going to stand out.
Yeah, you're not even using Omar Sheik. I know I said that earlier, but it just you have $8 million of just dead production on your roster. That's not conducive to a winning environment. Your best player doesn't have the tenacity to change the culture of a team regardless of his skill set. And I guess you could even ask me which player I'm talking about, and it applies for both. So if your two best players, your two top paid players, aren't changing the culture of your franchise, you've got issues, Houston.
All right, so we're going to take an intermission here and take a little bathroom break. Then we're going to come back and talk about the players. Player awards, MVP. Is Durant going to get it? Best coaches. Are certain players even in the top 25? We're going to talk about Love or Marcus. That's a big issue right now. Who's better? And we'll be right back. God, go pick up that shit.
Just took her outside.
Video stopped. I figured.